Hey Gator fans, so in this video we're going to be reading and reacting to an article that was written by uh, Saturday Down South Neil Blackman, who covers the Florida Gators out of that site on Alligator Army. He's talking about why now is this upcoming season is the season for Billy Napier to do something special in Gainesville, and so we're going to be breaking that article down and his reasonings for why he determines that this is the year for the Gators to finally wake up and become a prominent player in college football again. Hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry for the little hesitation right there. So here's the article written by Neil Blackman of the talking about why now is the time for Billy Napier to win now after having a patient rebuild as Florida's coach. Billy Napier's been at Florida for 3 years. So, excuse me, this is heading into his fourth season. So now it's time to win games because now he's been given the patience needed to build a team to compete for for a potential college playoff visit. And now it is time for Florida fans to see all that patience come to fruition. So it was none other than Bear Bryant who said the truest thing there is to say about Florida football. Sure, Bryant was speaking eons ago, a generation before Steve Spurrier's fun and gun offense dragged the SEC kicking and screaming out of the 3 yards in a cloud of dust doldrums of the 80s and two generations before Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, and Percy Harvin and the Gator boys marauded and mangled all comers in the mid and late 2000s. But there's truth in what Brian told the Miami Herald in the 1970s. When he asked whether Florida would ever win and win big in the cutthroat world of big time Southern college football, he said, "There's a sleeping giant down there. Don't poke that alligator. It's asleep and you won't like it when they wake up." And what he meant by that was because Florida was in the state of Florida, which is a recruiting hotbed for college athletes, you did not want the big name program of the Florida Gators to all of a sudden become a prominent figure in college football, which Florida did in the 90s. And we're going to talk about it right here. In other words, to borrow from the parlance of the times, meaning what the saying is now, don't let the Gator boys get hot. The Gators woke up and, of course, got hot. Florida won 8 that they count and 3 that they don't count, SEC titles, and 3 that they count, 1 that they don't, national titles between 1980 and 2010. Florida also won more games than any program in the SEC in that 30-year span. The time Tim Tebow graduated, excuse me, Urban Meyer decided to spend more time with his family or work on his health as the head coach at Ohio State, and the Gators slipped into a swampy hole somewhere in the college football shadowlands. I appreciate the pettiness with Urban Meyer. Sure, Kyle Trask and a salty defense won 11 games in the Orange Bowl in 2019, and there was one-dimensional outfits, 2012 strong defense, bad offense, and 2020 elite offense, bad defense in parentheses. That came within an arm's reach of playing for the national championship in 2012 or winning the SEC championship in 2020. And yes, millennial Florida fans will sing from their swampy skiff boats and tell you that Will Greer didn't need to shop at GMC to feel good about the program's strength and conditioning program. Florida would have waltzed to a national title in 2015. But none of those teams won anything better than a couple of SEC East divisional titles and the 2019 Orange Bowl championship. The count since Meyer and company won the national championship in Miami on a January 9, 2000 is glaring. 0 SEC championships, 0 BCS title or college football playoff appearances, and 0 national titles. In fact, 2010, Florida has had more losing seasons, 2013, 2017, and 2021, 2, and 3, and more head coaches, Meyer, Muschamp, McElwain, Mullen, and Napier than SEC championship game appearances. This is a staggering descent to mediocrity from a program that went 33 years without a losing season from 1980 to 2013, winning a quarter of SEC championships in that era. Florida fans are filled with explanations for the downfall, from facility arms race fiascos to recruiting mishaps to bad coaching hires to banning the Gator bait cheer to the curse of the Swamp Kings to the rise of the from the rise of Nick Saban's imperious Alabama to Kirby Smart's Georgia Death Star. Whatever the reason, a Florida football and SEC program at the flagship university in the most fertile recruiting hotbed in the sport has not been good enough, which brings us to Billy Napier. I wasn't exactly Jon Snow fighting off the emerging horde at the Battle of the Bastards a season ago when I wrote that Florida was a long rebuild, and that embattled athletic director Scott Strickland, what a difference March Madness makes, was right to give Billy Napier time, as in more time than the typical high church episcopal, I don't know how to say that word, excuse me, 10-minute homily customary among SEC programs. When he doubled down on Napier last autumn, despite a dire September and a record of 4-4 entering November, Florida won its Final Four, though, including thrilling home wins over rival LSU and a top 10 Ole Miss team. All signs suggested that Florida might finally be stirring from hibernation. It helps to have a difference maker and program changer at the most important position in sports. Talking about the quarterback spot. And when he, before I go into this next paragraph, when he was talking about what a difference March Madness makes, he's talking about the Gators winning a basketball championship this year under Todd Golden, and saying how that now looks better under Scott Strickland because Scott Strickland did hire Todd Golden. DJ Lagway was 7-0 in games, and he started and finished in 2024 and was leading the cocktail party against Georgia when he exited due to a leg injury. Playing on essentially one leg with a dinged up shoulder through the month of November in Florida's Gasparilla Bowl win, Lagway outdueled Garrett Nussmeier in the LSU win. It was better than Ole Miss star Jackson Dart in multiple advanced metrics and on the scoreboard in Florida's playoff spoiling win over the Rebels. Lagway's ability to make throws few humans on the planet can make, coupled with the prospect of another year in Billy Napier's offense and Florida's strength and conditioning program, has scouts and fans alike salivating. And I can tell you this as a Florida fan from what I've seen, the Billy Napier's second best hire after Ron Roberts at the defensive coordinator position was definitely Tyler Miles at strength and conditioning. It's not just hype, one SEC defensive coordinator told me of Lagway this winter. He simply elevates the level of their football team. He makes them more multiple because of the windows he can throw into and the way he essentially forces you to play too high safety by being remarkably accurate on the deep ball. He's as good as a young quarterback as I've seen in our conference. In fact, the consensus among SEC coaches and scouts Saturday down south, that's what SDS stand for, talked to this winter was that for almost every question about Billy Napier's offense and scheme, Lagway offers an answer. Lagway's health, of course, is a huge caveat. Florida will face arguably the nation's toughest schedule for the second consecutive season, plagued by nagging injuries. And Lagway, plagued by nagging injury throughout last season and in the spring, will need to avoid injury for Florida to reach its lofty potential. Lagway last year was playing with not only a shoulder injury, but he also had the leg injury that was referenced, and he also had a sports hernia that he had been dealing with since high school. But there is potential, which is a testament to what made Napier worth keeping. Napier has recruited well, building a team from the line of scrimmage outward. Florida boasts perhaps the SEC's best offensive line, anchored by returning first-team All-American Jake Slaughter and All-SEC left tackle Austin Barber. 4 starters with a collective 98 starts return, and the Gators are deeper up front than any unit they've had since the early Muschamp era. Talking about, I think he means the defensive front seven. That group, oh no, he's talking about the offensive line, excuse me. That group, which surrendered the 4th fewest pressures and 3rd fewest sacks in the SEC in 2014, should help keep Lagway upright. They also should pave holes for a ground game that features all SEC freshmen Jaden Ball, bowling ball Jacoby Jackson, and a host of blue chip talent behind them. On defense, Florida returned 7 starters, including bona fide NFL prospects in Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks, from a defensive line that ranked second in the SEC in havoc and quarterback pressures last November, behind only Ole Miss. In the secondary, a skeleton of the DBU years of Florida's heyday is loaded, especially at the cornerback position, where Florida returns 4 players that graded out in the top 100 in Pro Football Focus in coverage. Napier's mindful evaluations player retention program recruiting mean that Cass supporting Lagway, the former 5-star Gatorade National Player of the Year in high school, he's from Willis, Texas, is as good as it's been in Gainesville in a long time. In other words, it's time for the mean alligator to shake off the cobwebs and slink out of the swamp to hunt. Championship windows in college football are small. Blink and the windows are shut. Don't believe me? Ask Urban Meyer, who admitted that the Florida program was a bit broken when he left in 2010. Ask Dabo Swinney, who would dispute that his window has shut and may be right, but will have a harder story to tell if the Tigers can't summit the mountain this season, with Cade Klubnik in year 4 under center. Ask Les Miles, whose grass chewing went from an affable trait to a winner to frustrated and listless musings of a man who left the game behind in just a few short seasons. The best example of that is Florida State, right? Florida's rival, 13-1 in 2023, 2 years ago, and then they went to 2-10 within a year. For Billy Napier, it will never get any better than now. Lively knows that. He seems to be embracing the pressure, which he called a privilege, on Wednesday in Atlanta when Florida was doing their SEC media days. Napier, he's seen the schedule. And here's a tweet from Billy Napier talking about the schedule, and he simply put, "spot the ball." And that tells you, okay, there's more confidence in this program than there has been in quite some time. But he knows the talent is there. He's not making any excuses or talking about the process. The process has reached the moment it built for, which begins on August 30th. Neil is referring to the opener against LIU. At the end of last year, 4 consecutive wins, you could argue we were playing as good as anyone in the country. Napier said Wednesday. Our development process is working. The organization as a whole is working as well as it has as long as I've been a head coach. This is the most talented team we've had in Gainesville. It certainly is. Now it's time for Billy Napier to do what teams this talented are supposed to do: win. And I don't disagree at all with what Mr. Blackman said. I think he's absolutely correct when he says that um, Florida should win this season and win big, and not only just win big because of the fact that it's it's required as the Florida Gator head coach, because that's the expectations of being at the University of Florida, because of what Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow built the program to be during their times. But in college football, it is rare for head coaches to get 4 years of patience, and he's been given that. So he's been given that. A lot of head coaches in college football nowadays don't get 4 years to turn a program around, because of the transfer portal being opened up and NIL being around, and now we're in a more microwave society. Everybody expects things to turn around within a year or two, right? But for Billy Napier, he's at year 4 at Florida, and at this point, he hasn't even accomplished. And this is just me stating facts, not me talking bad about Napier. It's just the truth. In 3 years at Florida, he's accomplished less than what Will Muschamp did in 3 years at Florida. He's accomplished less than what all the previous three head coaches outside of Urban Meyer had did before him. Dan Mullen didn't have a losing season until his final year in Florida, which he got fired, which he was 5-6. Jim McElwain, when he got fired, didn't even have a losing record at the time that he was fired. But he had went to the SEC championship game twice. Will Muschamp only had one losing record at Florida. Billy Napier's had two of them, and he's coming off his best record, which is a 5-loss season. Those are just the facts. So Billy Napier, not only because of the expectations at Florida, but in referencing, if you go back to where Neil Blackman made the reference to Scott Strickland in the March Madness, as you see right here, I'm going to highlight in blue. What a difference March Madness makes is because across the street from Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is the basketball center, the Stephen O'Connell Center, and Todd Golden just won a national championship in year 3 at Florida. So right now, there's more expectation for Billy Napier because of that, because now you have Florida as a national championship program in basketball again, which they had not been in quite some time since the Billy Donovan days, which actually was occurring while Urban Meyer was at Florida. But now, if you can get both the football and the basketball program to be winning at the same time, then that brings Florida, that legitimizes Florida as the everything school that as Gator fans refer to UF as being. Because then, if you get a college football playoff appearance, and who knows, maybe even a conference title or a national title in football, now you have both the programs winning at the same time. The two biggest sports in college football, Gators would be at the center of it at the same time, like they were in the league from 2006 and 2008. The basketball team repeated as basketball champions from 2006 to 2007, and the football team won 2 national titles in a 3-year span from '06 to '08. And they had Tim Tebow win the Heisman Trophy in between. So for Florida fans, for Billy Napier, he has to win big this year. There's no excuse. He has everything that you could possibly need from a head coach, from the program: patience, the talent, the quarterback, the support of the athletic director, and now some fan base, and now the excitement from the fan base is starting to build. So 2025 is a very critical year for Billy Napier. But I'm going to leave this video right here because I don't want to drag this on too long. Uh, Billy Napier needs to win right now. If not, then Floyd's going to have to look for a new head coach this season because this is the best opportunity he'll have as the head coach in Gainesville. So go Gators, and we'll see what happens.